So we're going to go through a few of those ways making fire here. And the first thing I wanted to show you guys is just kind of like where you would start, which is with making a tinder bundle. So this is the dried dead bark from, this is an aspen tree, and this is from a basswood tree. So you can see this one is especially fine and fluffed up. And what I've done is kind of like rubbed it.
You got muted again.
Sorry about that.
Where did we leave off? Okay. Well, you want to kind of gather the fibers that land on the sweatshirt here. Like, even that dust is really valuable. So I'm going to put that right in the middle here. And then I'm going to kind of do the same thing to this basswood bark here. Just going to rub it between my hands, fluff it up. Because really this is one of the scientific principles here is surface area. So you want really small pieces of bark so that there's a lot of surface area available for the fire to take off in. Okay, this fluffed up there. And then since these are long enough, can't always do this, but I'm actually gonna kind of like tie it up in a, kind of like just a half square knot. So just a really simple hitch so that I've got like this little depression here. And then I'm gonna put the middle, the softer piece like right in there. So it's nice and secure. Looks like a little bird nest, people like to say. Okay, so we got the tinder bundle. And then from here, you can make fire a lot of different ways. What I'm gonna show first is my favorite of all these skills, which is the bow drill, which is using friction.
Have you heard of a bow drill? I want to try one.
Okay, so basically the pieces of the bow drill here. This is called fireboard. This is called the spindle. Both of these are made out of pawpaw wood. So you need something that's not a pine tree, but it's soft wood. This is called the handhold. This is like a knife handle. You can see the metal in here. Basically the top end of the spindle fits right in there. And it's nice to have something really hard for the handhold so there's not a lot of friction on the top. You want all the friction down here. Certain deer bones actually work really well. Stones, if you can find one with a depression in the right spot. And then this is the bow. This is made out of juniper. And then the string is parachute cord. You can use a shoelace though, or like Sarah's wearing a leather belt. We were talking about how that could be taken apart for a bow drill string. Okay, so basically one of the hardest parts of this skill is learning how to thread the string over the spindle. But there's so many different ways to do it. You just kind of have to find what works for you. And I just kind of like taking my shoe off for this so I can feel the fireboard a little bit better, because you don't want to step on it so hard that it breaks. So then I've already like done this a little bit. So this part's already burned out, and then I've carved a notch right here. So basically as I drill, little tiny bits of burning wood are going to gather in this notch. And if it gets hot enough, that's going to form a coal that we'll put into the tinder bundle. I forget exactly how hot it has to get, but I measured this with a temperature gun not too long ago, and I think it was like 400 degrees. So basically I'm keeping my forearm really firmly braced against my shin. That helps keep this spindle steady. And it's important to take your time and try to use like the whole length of the bow, keeping the spindle steady. So I'm putting some downward pressure with my hand on the handhold, but I'm also really pulling my forearm against my shin. You can see some smoke starting to come out here. Then once it starts to smoke a lot, I go a little bit faster and I push down a little bit harder. So because this is smoking so much, I know that we've done a good job here. Actually, it looks like there's 2 coals, so there's twins here. But basically, this burning dust has congealed together to make a coal. You might be able to see it. It's kind of starts shining red, and it keeps on smoking. So don't have to rush at this point, but see my tinder bundles right here and ready. So I'm gonna kind of push down with my thumbs to make a little depression for the coal, and I'm gonna try to drop it right there in the middle. This one's actually kind of falling apart on me a little bit. See, it's glowing in there. Okay, look out, it's about to go. Okay, now it's burning. So it's like a fine line between squeezing together too much, but also making sure the coals have contact with the tree bark there. So then at this stage, you would want to have a lot of small twigs already ready to put onto the fire. Like you wouldn't want to just try to add a bunch of big logs. And we're gonna go over that here in just a minute. But any questions about the bow drill? So like reiterate here, the spindle turns in here and that burning dust gathers right there in the notch. And that's what creates a new fire by friction. Notice that the top here has no sign of burning, which is really good. Because like I said, we want all the friction on the bottom. So this wood against the kind of slippery steel of the handhold, it doesn't slow the bow drill down.
Grease.
What's that?
You want to tell them about the grease?
Yeah, so if you need, like, if you are using wood for the handhold, you can use grease at the corner of your nose and rub it on there. Because you have like natural oils in your skin that can really help make this even more slippery. I like to just kind of take it through my hair too. Since I have natural oils in my hair. If I'm doing this with little kids in person, I ask them to put a little bit of their earwax on here, which definitely breaks the social distancing rules of today. But it's pretty funny.
So we have some questions about how you make those tools. Like, how would you make the notch in the fireboard if you didn't have tools, and how do you make the different parts of the bow drill set?
Okay. Great questions. Step right on over here. So I've got another set here. It looks a little different that I was just making today. This is out of basswood, which is another good wood to use. So basically, to make the very beginning of the spindle, you can actually start from a whole branch. You know, if this, let's say this was 3 times as long, you would use what's called a beaver cut, which is just how beavers knock down a tree. So just take a little notch off and then rotate it a little bit. So basically I'm just cutting little bits off all the way around the branch. And just keep doing that until you have a point at one end. Anytime you're using your knife, you should make sure that there's no possible way to injure anybody who's around you. It's called the blood bubble. So making sure Sarah's out of my blood bubble. And I'm also not carving back towards myself because then I could cut myself with a knife. But just making little cuts all the way around, just like a beaver would knock down a tree, until we get to the point there, okay?
Well, I'm gonna try that.
Landon asked about how you can tell the tree type. Hannah said you can look at the leaves or the branches, but maybe you have more to say about that.
Yeah, that's like a whole other skill. We could do a whole like day about that, but I would suggest getting to know a few trees really well. Like cottonwood is a really good one. Red maple is really common. That's a good tree to get to know. Like I said, basswood, and then pawpaw. You know, if you start with those four, get to know those trees. And there's a lot of good resources online. We can maybe look for some at the end of the lesson. We're kind of actually up on a ridge top here, so there's mostly white oak. And there's not a lot of the softer wood species like cottonwood you find along big rivers, big streams. Basswood usually like down, you know how we have all these beautiful hills down here. It's usually like on the mid hill or down by the creek. So where you are is also a big part of it. But you know, just to finish up the how-to here, if I was to start a new hole here, I could just use my knife, pop it in there, and twirl it around like so, and then the end of the spindle will fit in there, and that's how you get one started. Okay. Then the other end of the bow drill is like, you can see it has a longer peak. So that's to make sure that there's only a little bit of contact between the top of the bow drill and the handhold. So that reduces the amount of friction up here. And then the last piece that you need to find here is the bow, and pretty much any type of wood works. I would recommend something that's either green or it's recently dyed, so it still has a lot of strength. And I like something with a little bit of a bow in it, not too much, and it's not completely straight. So that's my favorite kind of bow to make. This one's made out of juniper. It's very tough.
Like a bow.
Were there other questions I didn't quite get to? I guess the other thing to mention is you can't do this with live wood. It's got to be dead. So there's a trick called the thumbnail trick. If you have a piece of wood, you're not sure if it's dead or if it's too dead, you can push your thumbnail into it, and it should make a little dent. It might be hard to see on the camera, but you make a little dent there. If you press and it crushed it, then you know it's too dead. It's not going to work. And if it's really hard, you can't make a mark at all, then it's too green. It's still too alive. So it takes a lot of practice finding the bow drill materials.
Huh, that's cool.
They're out there. And you know, I had to make a lot of these before I had one that worked. So another thing is like, just be patient with yourselves, and if you want to get good at this, it's going to take time, but it's worth it. I probably practice this for, I would say, like 3,000 hours over the last 18 years. So it's taken me a lot of practice. Okay, anything else on the bow drill?
I don't think so.